Hello everyone and welcome to what is probably one of the most action-packed rounds of racing I've ever had in this championship. This video is brought to you by the resources area of my website. Check out info regarding my Discord server, office setup, pets, sponsors, a monthly blog and more at bruffy.com/resources. So race 1, which is probably the lesser of the two in terms of action, so we'll do some highlights for this first race and then we'll see the second race in full. But it was slippy out there in this round. The qualifying was done in full wet conditions, but by the time we got out for our first race, it was a little bit drier. There was certainly drier lines starting to form, and that's what I was trying to hunt for around this first lap, going around the outside, trying to hunt for where it was dry. It worked out for me this time, but it was a little bit risky because you can always get pushed off in those kind of situations. Nevertheless, I was getting bumped and barged, as you probably saw, into the first corner. I was kind of right in the middle of, one coming up the inside of me and hitting me into someone else. It was kind of like that for this round. The dry line was starting to form on the inside of the first hairpin there, so that allowed me to gain a few positions as people went wide, thinking that it was still the wet line that was going to be best there. And yeah, I was doing all right in these first stages, making places off the start. I qualified down in 19th place, which wasn't great, to be honest. I felt like I couldn't really get a clean lap in for the qualifying, and it was difficult to figure out where the grip was because it was very cold and it just wasn't really drying up, at least during the qualifying. It took a while for it to get some dry lines that we're seeing here. At least, even on the dry lines, it was still quite slippy. It was just that it was better than going around the outside of the track like you would normally in full wet conditions. So I went into this round with a little bit of a different mindset. For the last few rounds of this championship, I've had certainly some issues in terms of getting bad karts or experiencing some bad driving and things like that, and the mindset that I'm going into it now is just content. Let's just do it for a bit of content. I want to get some interesting races for you guys to watch and just aim to improve on a personal level. I can't do anything about the kart selection that I get, whether I get a good kart or a bad kart, or how the races go or what anybody else does, but I can try to do put in some good performances, get some good overtakes like you saw there, make up some positions when I have the opportunity to do that, and just hopefully provide some fun racing for you guys to watch. And I think I'm doing alright in the early stages of this race. I'm finding where the dry areas of the circuit are. I'm able to make these overtakes. And yeah, it's looking good so far, making up places, considering I started in 19th from a pretty poor qualifying, already up into 13th after, basically 2 laps of the race isn't too bad at all. So yeah, like I said, the qualifying was in full wet conditions, and as you see in the top left, there's a lot of people in this race. Now, the way that they ran it this time is that because there was too many people in the heavyweight class for one race worth, I think 35 is sort of the maximum that they can have, they decided to put all the lightweights and the heavyweights together. So even though, say for example, I'm in 12th place overall in this race at the moment, I might be, say, 6th or 7th place in the lightweight class, which is the one that I race in, because if there's 5 heavyweights in front of me, I'm not counting those in terms of points for the championship or anything like that. So that's why there's such a huge amount of people overall. There was sort of a B tier race first of all with the bottom qualifiers, and you just had to really make sure you were in that sort of the top half really to be in the A group, and then the top few from the B group do move up to the A group for the final round. But I quite liked it. I quite liked having so many different people, and I am 12th place out of maybe 20 or so in this race, or 25, 26, whatever it was. But really, I'm also 12th place out of everybody racing this time, because there's a whole entire rest of the half that are in their own race as well. So yeah, it was quite fun to be having such a big grid like that. And at this point, I was sort of trying to push on a little bit, trying to push the boundaries of what I could do, and then I totally botch it, and yeah, down the order we go, and I was really annoyed with myself.
Fuck off, oh, I'm such a twat. God damn it.
God damn it.
God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God damn it. God dam
So yeah, there I was after gaining all those places from 19th up to 12th. I was suddenly back down in 26th and I could not believe it. But from a content perspective, hey, it's making it interesting. So I gotta at least continue the mindset that I was trying to go for with the start of this round. And as you see, I'm sort of miles behind even 25th place at this point. It was, I basically just, I was still feeling like I had to brake into the first corner because it was so wet and so slippy. I'm taking the outside line around there, and I just snatched the brakes. I went too hard on them, and it went around, and there was nothing I could do. Entirely my own fault. I was trying to push on, try to go quicker because I felt like I had good pace in the kart that I was given for this one, and with me making all those places early on and sort of the group that were all fighting over a top 5 only just ahead of me at that point, I was feeling like, okay, we can push on and get some more positions here. But yeah, obviously massive mistake, all my fault, and it put me all the way back down the order. Now, over the course of the rest of the race, I was basically in recovery drive mode. I was still pushing on, still trying to do what I could do, see what I could do, and I was making some overtakes. Some people went off of their own accord. Sometimes I was able to, just take a better line through some corners and get some decent little overtakes. One time I was able to get up the inside and do a double overtake because I saw what was going to happen with people drifting out wide on the first corner before it did happen. So the racecraft was pretty good and the pace was pretty good. I was just way down the order of where I should have been, and I think I lost about 10 seconds in terms of lap time on that lap that I spun. And if you add that, take that away from my total race time, I definitely would have been in that fight for a top 5 place in this one. So, really annoying that I did that, but I've only got myself to blame, obviously. But at least it allowed for a bit of a recovery drive and getting some decent overtakes as well. And at least it showed I had some decent pace as well, because it's difficult, especially the last few rounds where you're getting bad karts or things like that, and you're constantly thinking, oh, do I have it? Do I have the ability still? And it doesn't take much for me to experience self-doubt, let's put it that way, and this first race also didn't help. But the way that I was able to respond to it and get those positions back and again have pace that probably would have been good enough for a top 5 had I not made that silly mistake, it was encouraging, at least in that respect. Now, towards the end of the race, I was getting a little frustrated because I was stuck behind this guy in the McLaren suit who I felt I was so much quicker than in the corners and around the rest of the lap, but when it came to the straight, he just kind of drove away. So I wasn't able to get him by the end of the race, which was really annoying. But that is a battle that will resume for race 2. By the way, these races are 15 minutes, so that's why the lap count can sometimes change during the course of, from one round to the next. We were obviously running a lot slower lap times because of the wet conditions, so the 15 minutes we only got 11 laps done, whereas normally in dry conditions we get 13 laps done. But yeah, all in all, I made 13 overtakes in this race, and from my starting grid position, I gained 1 place. So that's pretty much the story about that one. A bit of a missed opportunity, I think, but it set me up nicely for an action-packed second race. Just as a quick interlude, I've actually experimented in this video with slightly more aggressive stabilization. The consequence of this is that the video should be smoother than past videos, but also slightly more zoomed in order for the higher level of stabilization to actually work. I also don't want it to look too unnatural, so let me know your thoughts in the comments of whether you've preferred this video or you would rather go back to the slightly less aggressive levels of stabilization that was in the previous videos. Alright then, race 2, and the action started immediately because obviously you start in the place that you finished the previous race, so starting in 18th, and it didn't take long for me to lose a few positions where I put my foot on the throttle and the kart just didn't go forward. And that is similar to what happened last time, not to the same extent, but considering how swallowed up I got at the early part of this race, I was down in 27th place at one point, but then a lot of carnage happens in front and I'm immediately back up to 20th, so only a net loss of 2 positions from the grid spot, but yeah, I was momentarily in 27th place in this race. Just keep that in mind. We're going to go from 27th and see how far we can get, because in this final race, the second race, I got a decent kart for once. It was pretty good, and I wanted to utilize it as much as possible. It was in the early stages, the early laps. I kind of realized that it had some performance. Now there's a lot of karts that have some good performance. There's a lot of middle of the road karts, and then there's one or two really, really bad ones as well. It seems that's generally the reading that we're getting from it. At least most of the time you're going to have someone in a quick kart that's quicker than you, and I think there were quicker karts than mine out there today, but I was certainly in the top, I don't know, 10% or something. So it was something that I could do something with, rather than just trying to not go backwards as much as possible. And this is kind of where I first saw that I had some decent straight line performance. I was able to get up the inside here as well. He slid out wide there, and I got up into 18th place, so made 2 positions there, back into my starting grid spot. And that was something that I was you obviously saw me do it in the first race as well, but the inside of the first corner was consistently sort of slippy, and people were trying to go up the inside for an overtake and just slide out wide. So that was something that I continually noticed during the course of this round, and I was getting some nice sort of double overtakes in that situation, which was nice. And again, that racecraft and mindset was still there. At least I haven't lost a bit of that. So yeah, it was more dry for this second race, and you'll see that we have 14 laps now. Obviously I got a better exit there out of the chicane, and I was able to get up into 17th here. But yeah, we've got 14 laps, which is more than even we would normally do in a dry race, and it's because they actually missed out the first 2 laps on the timing. So we actually got a longer race than we should have done. Really, this should have finished on lap 12 from my perspective. Nothing changes in terms of the positions between lap 12 and lap 14, but yeah, it's a bit of a longer race than it normally should have been, just because I think they didn't sort of turn on the timing system until 2 laps in. They just must have made a mistake when they were running it. So I've got up into 16th there, and as you can see, there's a lot of karts ahead, and I'm back behind the McLaren suit guy. Even though I lost a lot of time to him at the very start of the race, I've managed to catch up, as this whole pack is just battling. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because there's just karts everywhere of all sorts of different pace performances and driving abilities and all this kind of stuff. I was much quicker than the guy right in front, but there's nowhere to go in this kind of situation. So I just had to try and pick my moments well, and get through when I could. But it's tough when you're in this mid pack, because there's certain situations where you can be feeling like you're a lot quicker than people in front, but then you're offline in one area where you go for an overtake, and suddenly 5 people come past you because everybody's just so close together. But that's the fun part about it, and trying to figure all that out, and especially when there's so many people over the course of the whole thing. It's nicer to have races where there's a guy on the outside there. That's why I gained a position, by the way. He'd gone off the track, but instead of having races of 15 to 20 people just from all the lightweights, for example, I actually prefer it to have grids of 25 to 30, because you get this closer racing more often than not. But you do have to accept that, especially when lightweights and heavyweights are racing together, it can be a little rough, and that's kind of what I was experiencing in this round. And certainly I was getting hit in the back a lot and all this kind of stuff, but I was just focusing on going forward. I was so disappointed in myself about that first race and the mistake I made, and I realised I had a kart that I could do something with in this second race. I wanted to just make as many places as I could. I had no idea what position I was actually in at any point until pretty much the very end, but it didn't matter. I just wanted to make places as quickly as I could, and as many of them as I could. Now this is where it all starts to get a little bit dicey, because we're pretty much 6 or 7 wide at this point during the course of the straight. I tried to get through there, but it was never going to work, and you can see how there's just so many of us all together. I try to go around the outside and hang it all around there, which works for a small amount of time, but I can't just get in front of the person who I was racing on my inside, and then that puts me on the outside, and then, like I said, you just get hung out to dry and lose a lot of positions all in one go. So I was frustrated because I felt I was quicker than all of these, and I certainly felt that if I could pick them off one by one, it would be pretty straightforward for me to get through all of them and push on even further. But when everybody's so close together like this, and you have a compromised line in one corner, and then someone is able to get up the inside like here, there's not an awful lot you can do, and it's just being mindful, and I need to be better at that, being mindful of what's behind me whilst I'm also trying to, you know, overtake people in front, especially when I'm in a pack like this. Although normally you're expecting people to all follow the same sort of lines, whereas in the damp conditions different lines are possible. So it was an interesting one. So I've managed to regain my position in 15th, and now it's time to regroup. Basically, there was a point during that where I said to myself, look, I'm so much quicker than these guys, let's just push on. So I managed to, as you can see there, the pace difference there, it's crazy. I mean, I am in a decent kart, but I think he was in a pretty bad one as well to make it look that bad. So yeah, I'm feeling like I'm quicker than all of these, and I just need to pick my moments and get these overtakes done, you know, cleanly. So up the inside here, managing to basically follow this guy through. He's still on my outside there, so I haven't got the move done just yet. And then, yeah, someone else comes up at the inside of me there, and I'm not able to, you know, do a cutback or anything like that. And that's exactly how it goes sometimes. And then I get hit in the back because it's like I said, it's pretty rough, this one. So, yeah, but, you know, this time, instead of what happened a lap ago, I'm actually maintaining my position. So even though I've lost a little bit of time to the guys in front trying to overtake, and then having people come, you know, and try to overtake me, I haven't at least led those positions. I've managed to maintain my position, and I can still continue to push on. Went a little bit wide around the last corner, but it's okay because I've got some decent pace in this kart. And what I was noticing, as you see me do the same thing again that I've done all the way through this and get that double overtake up the inside, because I just saw it coming from a mile away that he's going to go on the slippery stuff on the inside, and they're both going to slide out wide. So I saw it coming from a mile away, and that was a nice one. And I was enjoying doing those moves multiple times during the course of this round. But yeah, one thing I was noticing with this kart is that it was very good on the straights, sort of towards the top end, and it was really good in right-hand turns as well. So it had good grip on, like, you know, the left tires, but it wasn't as strong in left-hand turns. So I was, you know, again, this is always the sort of thing that all the karts are different, and you've got to figure out where the strengths and weaknesses are as you go through. But what was really helping me with the way that this kart was is that I was able to carry the good straight line speed all the way around the first part of the lap, and you know, on those, you know, those right hand turns at the early on, I was able to carry that speed all the way through because it had some good grip in right hand turns. Now you can see the absolute crazy train of karts here, and I think it was my 2015 buddy Penfold who was holding them all up, doing a great defensive masterclass, and I'm very happy about that because it was allowing me to, you know, get back into this race. And again, like I said, I was able to carry that speed all the way around this area, so that got me the position there. Again, I got hit in the back for my trouble, but that's fine. And then I'm up into the top 10, so I've gone from 27th to 10th. And we've got a load of karts in front as well, so there's still positions to be made up. Now, I make an overtake on the inside there because someone had dragged water from the right hand side of the track onto the circuit, so it was actually better at that stage to stick to the inside where it was more dry than, you know, slide out wide. Someone did slide out because I don't think they noticed that the water had been dragged on. And I gained a place there. You didn't see it because my camera stops recording after 10 minutes. It only does 10 minutes at a time, and there's a little bit of a gap of I think it's like, you know, 2 seconds or something before it starts the next recording. So you didn't see the run up to that, but you did just see the guy on the outside at the end of that. And I was able to get another place here to get up into 8th. So it's been good. I've been making places. That was a good lap, that one. I made quite a few positions. I think I went from sort of 12th to 8th or something in the space of one lap. And we've still got places to go. I mean, Penfold is there 3 places ahead of me in 5th place. And I feel like I'm quicker than everybody ahead of me right now. especially with the way that I've been making places in this race, why can't I go ahead and go get all these positions? Now, as you can see, that this is why we're going to the inside here, because it is wet on the outside, because that water's being dragged across, but everyone's aware of it at this point, so everyone's in the same boat. And again, you can see how in that right hand turn there, I was able to carry a lot of good speed, whereas in terms of the left hand turns, and I was a bit offline there with a bit of a damp patch, but in the left hand turns I'm kind of matching what the others are doing, but certainly in the right hand turns I feel like I'm a lot stronger, and I've got some good straight line performance in the kart as well. So Penfold finally loses a position after he's been keeping that 5th place for so long, and I'm right behind the McLaren suit guy once again after all of this. And I was so determined to get ahead because I felt so much quicker, especially after what I was experiencing in the first race and being frustrated stuck behind him. So I managed to get a really nice overtake on the final corner. He's still on the outside here, but again Penfold slides a little bit there on the right hand turn, but because I have that good grip, I was able to sneak up the inside, and I gained basically 2 places in one straight, and I'm up to 6th. And at this point, I didn't really know where I was at this point. I just knew that, hey, I'm doing all right here. We're making places. We've made a lot of places. I've made 21 places so far in this race, from being down in 27th at one point, now up to 6th. And there's only one more place to go to get a top 5. We always say top 5's always possible in all of the races that we do. I genuinely didn't think it was in this one, to be honest, and I had to have a bit of a talking to from my 24-hour race teammates, who I will talk about in a little while. Telling me, I was saying, hell, there's no way I'm going to get a trophy in this race, so I might as well just have fun with it. But here I am from a low starting grid position and then dropping down to 27th, and I'm fighting over 5th place. Now, that doesn't necessarily guarantee there's a trophy, because I don't know how many heavyweights are in front of me, how many lightweights are in front of me. Everybody in front of me might all be in the lightweight category, but it's the top 3 in the heavyweights and the top 3 in the lightweights that get trophies from the final race here, and it's your position in this final race that counts. But I felt quicker than this guy as well. Now, we'd both been making up places throughout the course of the race, I think. He's actually in my kart from the previous race, and I'm in his kart from the previous race. So it's interesting that we've ended up at the same position in the second race, because he started much further ahead than I did. The karts get swapped around, so first place gets last place's kart and vice versa. So I started 18th. I finished 18th in the previous race, so I think I got 12th place as kart or something like that. So it's interesting that we've ended up in the same place in each other's kart from the previous one. And yeah, this one, mine feels better, to be honest. I'm happy for it to be this way around than the other way around. So yeah, I'm looking for a way past, and at this point in the race there's quite a big gap to the rest of the top 4. It is, there's no way that we're going to catch up anyone else, and I didn't want to go to the inside there, because I've seen that mistake be made by so many people of drifting out wide with the slippery stuff, and he taps his head to say, think about it, sort of. I don't know whether he wants me to push him in the back and both go forward together, but there's no way we're catching up 4th place anyway, especially this late into the race, and realistically the race should finish about now in terms of the time, so there's no way I'm gonna help him along, because we're not gonna catch up anyway. So I get a nice grip again on that right hand corner, being able to carry the speed through, and I'm able to get that overtake done. It was a nice one up the inside, and I was also conscious that the McLaren suit guy was just behind me again, which is again why I didn't want to go up the inside going into the first corner on the last lap, and I chose to go on the outside anyway, because I didn't want to have what I've done to people multiple times during this race to be done to me, and go up the inside, slide out wide, and then lose a position at the same time as you gain one. So there I was, up into 5th place. There's still 2 laps to go, which are sort of 2 extra laps in a way. We shouldn't have really had these in terms of the time, but nothing changes from this point on. This is where I finish. I went from 27th place around this part of the lap on lap 1 to 5th in this race in 12 laps. and it was so much fun to actually be making places, doing some good moves, doing some good overtakes, working my way through the field, and to gain 22 places in 12 laps, I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, like I said, I was a little bit down on myself after the mistake I made in the first race, but coming back, doing a comeback, not only in this race, but in terms of my mindset and the way that I was feeling, was just really nice. In terms of trophies, obviously, like I said, the top 3 in the heavyweight and the lightweight classes all get trophies for their finishing position in this race. I finished 4th in lightweight. There was one person from the heavyweight class in front, and then the rest were all lightweights. So I finished 4th place in class, which just missed out on a trophy by 1 spot, but what can you do? It was a great race anyway, and I wasn't expecting to be anywhere close to getting a trophy in the first place. So it's just so difficult to get a read on how you're doing with such up and down weekends of, you can be in a great kart one round and then a bad kart in another. It's so difficult to understand how you're performing, but this was a good one, and at least I was able to maximize what I had and get some great overtakes done and make up a lot of places. It was a good recovery, all things considered. And like I said, we've got a 24-hour race coming up at the end of April. We're going to be doing the Bookmore 24 hours. I'm going to be doing it with some of my old 2015 karting buddies who you might know from this series, Penfold, Cleat and Smithy. And actually the first race finished with Cleat in first place, Penfold in second and Smithy in third. So they were really turning back the clock to 2015. For those who've watched the 2014 and 2015 series, you'll recognise those names, but they were the top 3 in that first race. Shame I wasn't there to join them and really turn back the clock, but yeah, we've got a team put together with those 3 and some others as well that I will introduce everybody and make a video about it when we actually do the 24-hour race. But yeah, that's to come at the end of April. But as for this one, hopefully you've enjoyed an action-packed round, and yeah, hopefully it was fun to watch me scythe through the field, because I had a lot of fun getting back up there. So that's pretty much it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll see you next time.